Yay Networks.
I think the problem when you use the term sugar-free cookie or healthier cookie or better for you cookie is that people assume it's not going to be as good and it's not going to have the right texture. And although you have to use different ingredients and different means, you can often get almost what you were used to, and it's just as good. And trust me, in the end, you will not miss the higher carb, higher sugar cookies.
A quick note before we dive into today's podcast. If you like what you hear, I would love for you to subscribe to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, wherever you download your podcast. It would also be incredible if you take a minute to rate and review this podcast. Those things do matter and they really help us. I'm Molly Kimball. Welcome to Fueled, a wellness and nutrition podcast. I'm a registered dietitian and nutrition journalist with a passion to help people live their strongest, healthiest life possible. In my weekly TV segments and columns, there's a limited amount of time and space to cover everything, but there's so much more to share. This podcast is my opportunity to dive deeper into the topics you want to know about. Welcome to this week's episode of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, and we are talking cookies, y'all, and specifically holiday cookies, but not just recipes and how to bake them. We are talking troubleshooting your holiday cookies. So what are some of the issues whenever you have better for you cookies that you're making with gluten-free flours or plant-based sweeteners? You're aiming for that low carb, that healthier option of cookies, but it can be a real challenge to mimic the texture, the flavor, kind of that crispness that you might be shooting for. So we're going to be talking about troubleshooting your homemade cookies, your homemade low carb, low sugar, gluten-free, healthier versions of cookies. And then we're also going to be taste testing some store-bought cookies. So if you say, I'm going to scrap all of that, I want to hear maybe how to troubleshoot, but when it comes down to it, if you're pressed for time, you're going to be running into the grocery store, we've got a taste test for you. So it's not just me today. I am joined by Carolyn Ketchum. Y'all have actually heard her before on this podcast. Carolyn is brilliant in so many ways, and especially as it comes to low carb, gluten-free baking and baked sweets. Carolyn is the writer, the photographer, and the recipe developer, and as she says, the evil or brilliant, as I say, mastermind behind the website, the blog, All Day I Dream About Food. It's a low carb, gluten-free blog. If you haven't checked it out, you've got to. You'll absolutely love it. She has over 2 million page views a month. So it's not just me who loves it. It's actually one of the most popular low carb recipe websites out there. And Carolyn's mission is really to help all of us see, understand, and also try and get into our kitchens and realize that if we're following specialty diets, whether it's low carb or gluten-free or whatever that might be, it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be restrictive. And what she can do with, almond flour, coconut flour, a bit of willingness to experiment is amazing. So Carolyn, thank you.
Oh, thank you for having me again. Lovely to see you.
You too. So we first met years back. I want to say it might've been like 2013.
It was early. It was in New Orleans.
Yes.
That was my first ever trip to New Orleans.
And so you have, we've both been big fans of Swerve, plant-based natural sweetener, zero calories, zero glycemic. And that sort of was how we got introduced, and like minds. And you have a very strong skill set that I don't have, and that is baking. So you take things though, you're not just in the kitchen working with the recipes, you come into it with really almost like a food science approach, that food science minded approach to it. And so that has always been fascinating to me. And ever since in the years that I've known you, you are my go-to expert for all things gluten-free baking and low carb baking.
Well, thank you. I don't think I was as much back when I used to love to bake with just sugar and flour. I didn't really understand, I didn't need to understand why things worked and why things didn't, because it was gluten and sugar and they do their magical thing.
It's easy.
And then it was when I started to go low carb and cut out sugar that I was like, oh, this doesn't behave the way I expected it to. So I had to dig in and try to understand why it did that and how to compensate for it.
This past summer, our Eat Fit team hosted a specialty workshop here in New Orleans with our New Orleans Culinary and Hospitality Institute on educating our chefs, educating our restaurant chefs and owners on what the heck do we do with gluten-free flours, plant-based sweeteners? And we hosted a full day workshop for them. And Carolyn was the expert that we brought in for teaching one of the classes. And so when we say she is our go-to expert, she is our go-to expert in so many different things. And tell us a little bit of a background of how you got into this. Like you said, you used to cook with or bake with typical flour and sugar. So what was kind of the catalyst? What changed for you?
Oh, well, my third child gave me gestational diabetes, which could be at this point full-blown type 2 diabetes if I hadn't gone low carb, because I started to see my blood sugars spiral upwards after she was born. And I love to bake, and I thought my baking life was over. I thought I'd be, eating meats and vegetables and just but I couldn't help myself. I needed a muffin for breakfast. So I started investigating working with alternative flours and sweeteners. It took a couple of years. I learned of Swerve pretty early on. So once I tested it out a few times, I was like, this is great. Like, I got very used to baking with it to the point where I could no longer bake with flour and sugar. I wouldn't know what I was doing. And it just always created wonderful recipes for me and things I could eat and enjoy. And still, I like clean eating most of the time, but sometimes I like my treats. So,
and as we talked about, it's not just about baking or holiday baking that we're going to be talking about today. It's going to be helping you, our listeners, to troubleshoot what's going on with your cookies, with your holiday baking. And it's really a challenge at times when you are working with gluten-free flours to make what we would consider just that really solid, air quote, perfect holiday cookie. So Carolyn, I found this quote from you. I think it might have been in one of your recipes, but I love it because what you say is it's the magical intersection of flour and sugar that creates this texture that is both chewy and crispy at the same time. And when you decide to let go of both of those ingredients, flour and sugar, a good chocolate chip cookie seems like a thing of the past. And I think as serious as that is, it is like, the gravity of that statement.
I know, but did you say it seems like the past?
Exactly. Which is where your evil mastermind and your brilliant mastermind comes in. So that's what we're going to be walking y'all through today is, okay, thinking through your recipes, thinking through what you're doing, and trying to help you troubleshoot. And when you're putting the time, you're putting the money into the ingredients that you're buying, we want you to come out with a product that you're happy with. And so that's what Carolyn is going to help us with today. So with that, Carolyn, what are some of the biggest issues that people run into when it is the gluten-free flours, the low-carb baking ingredients?
Honestly, it's trying to treat it like it's regular flour and sugar. That is hands down the biggest mistake. People email me all the time saying, I got these rock hard cookies, or I got these, they were a mess. They didn't hold together. And I'm asking them a few more questions. And it's like, well, I just took my mom's old recipe or my grandmother's old recipe and I subbed, the sugar with this and the flour with some almond flour or some coconut flour. And I'm like, ooh, let's start at the beginning. These are not wheat flour. And they won't behave like wheat flour, even though they might look like it a little, but they won't behave like it. And so you really need to approach it with a completely different set of skills, which takes some time to develop, which is why I always recommend trying out well-tested keto or low carb or sugar-free recipes, gluten-free recipes first. And then once you learn how to work with those ingredients, then you can start going, now how would I adapt my grandmother's recipe?
And for our listeners who are like, okay, wait, walk me through almond flour, coconut flour. What's the deal with all the different sweeteners? Carolyn and I have done entire podcasts already on this. So I'm going to link to the podcast. Carolyn, you and I did it specifically we were talking about breads, but we talked a lot about flours and the different types of flours and the functionalities of these. And we also did a 2-part podcast with our team of experts that were our educators at the Noki event I told you all about. So I'm going to link to those podcasts because in that, we talked through a lot of those nuts and bolts about baking in general. So the different types of flours, sweeteners, fats, all the different things that you need to just kind of your 101. So we'll use this particular episode to really drill into perfecting those cookies.
Right.
Yes.
Good. Because there's so much to say on that subject, and we could go down that rabbit hole pretty quickly.
And Carolyn, I'll link also to your website and specifically the page that you've got some pages that are specifically about almond flour, coconut flour, one-on-one. So, okay. So
let me first say, as we jump into this, I use coconut flour for cookies only as a supplement to sort of dry out, because almond flour has so much fat in it. So I have never liked a plain coconut flour cookie.
Right.
Like if it doesn't have any, I find that nut flours or seed flours make much better cookies than coconut flour.
Okay, noted.
So
what I find is the hardest thing to mimic is the texture in cookies. It's really impossible. Well, not impossible. As you said, it seems impossible. A lot of times the result that I've had is a little spongy. It's cakey, it's spongy. So it's not, like you say, kind of that crispy, chewy cookie. So
yep.
I guess,
you want me to walk?
Yeah, let's start with the why, and then what do we do about it?
Well, I did actually a YouTube video a couple of weeks ago. It was a live stream where I showed one of the things that's going to make the difference is your sweetener. If you're getting cakey cookies, that can often be, if you're using something like allulose, you're never going to get anything that crisps up. It just doesn't crisp up. Neither does xylitol. And Boca Sweet is another sweetener that people use sometimes, and none of them will crisp up properly. So if you're looking for a nice crisp cookie, you're not going to get it with those. And I actually made the same batch of cookies, one with Swerve and one with allulose. And the Swerve was nice and crisp, and you could break it and you could hear the snap. And then I took the allulose cookie and I held it up, and it just went, ooh, like it flopped right over. Right. It was that soft. And it spread more, and it did totally different things. So for crisp, like if you're talking sort of cracker crisp, my best technique for that is a low temperature oven. Swerve is your only sweetener, almond flour, and then it's a longer bake time so that it dries out the cookie.
So low and
sometimes
slow.
So sometimes what I do is, like, even after I take them out, I let the oven cool down a little, but not completely. And then I put them back in to keep drying out in the oven. So things like biscotti or gingerbread men, something that needs like that snap. You just really sort of want a low temperature oven. And I really feel like almond flour or another nut flour is the best option there.
With Swerve as your sole sweetener.
Yes, with an erythritol-based sweetener like Swerve, and that's my favorite every time, as the only sweetener. Because even if you add a tablespoon of allulose, it will suddenly soften them up. I have tried, and it always takes me, I'm like, really? I only used 1 tablespoon. How can it do that? But it has an effect.
And if that's what you're looking for, then that's great. But if you're looking for that crisp cookie, like you said, a gingerbread type of a texture cookie or a biscotti, coconut, almond flour, Swerve, low temp oven, and then turn it off or even very low, and then put them back in again.
Yes.
Okay.
And one other little trick is don't be surprised when you take them out of the oven, they might seem very soft. You're touching them, you're poking them, and they still seem soft. They continue to crisp up as they cool. And that's the magic of Swerve, because it's that sort of tendency to recrystallize in some things is actually to your benefit in cookies, because it will firm up and they'll become nice and crisp.
What about the browning with that technique you just talked about? How does the browning turn out?
The low oven helps. One thing that also helps that I found is to use no baking powder, but baking soda. This is a trick I learned from the masterminds behind America's Test Kitchen and Cooks Illustrated, that when you don't want something to rise, but you want it to brown nicely. So again, say gingerbread, you actually add baking soda, just a small amount, usually half a teaspoon, no more than that. And it helps brown things in the oven more than baking powder does. So
baking powder, when you want that levity.
Yes.
When you don't want the rise, baking soda, which will help to brown. Wow.
Right.
This is like, who's going to know these things? just
I
off
know.
the cuff.
Well,
Yeah.
there's somebody out there that does, and you just
Right.
start investigating it. And that's, I've gotten lots of tips from amazing people who bake with flour and sugar, and I get
Right.
the little tip, and it works for, low, like gluten-free and low sugar too. So,
And then you become the encyclopedia for it.
I
Seriously.
try.
Yes. It's amazing. Okay. So crispy, if that's what you're going for, there's your tips.
Right.
Okay.
And if
And
you're looking for like a soft batch baked cookie, then, allulose is great too. One word about allulose, another thing that's kind of funky about it is it browns a lot. So your cookies may end up looking more brown than you expected.
would you do a blend of allulose and a sweetener like Swerve if you are looking
I
for that?
probably would if I didn't want to get it completely, because every time I've had a cookie made with just allulose, I'm startled by how dark it is on the outside.
And kind of
So
how soft. Yeah.
yeah. So I think half and half would probably be best for a
Okay.
soft baked cookie, because then you get you harness the properties of both.
And I shared this on the when we had all of our instructors from the Nokia event, that a ratio that I've found that I've been happy with has been 1/3 allulose to 2/3 Swerve.
Oh, that sounds good. Yeah.
To give
because again,
the
minute you put
softness.
any allulose,
Yeah.
the minute you put any allulose in, it softens right up and it won't crisp. So
if you are looking for, okay, you've got this cookie, you don't necessarily want it crispy like that ginger snap or biscotti. You do want that soft and chewy. The recipe that is coming to mind specifically is like a double dark chocolate chip recipe that my sister-in-law had that used almond flour in the original recipe she had, but it also used a lot of sugar. And so when I did it with just Swerve, it was a little more puffy and cakey than I wanted. And then when I did 1/3 of that substituted for allulose, it softened it and it just brought that moisture to it that I was really happy with.
Can I have that recipe?
Yes. I love it. I would be so honored. I think my cheeks are turning red. I would be so honored to share a recipe with you. Yes.
Yeah, I'd love it.
And then
my kids would love it.
Yeah, it's really, really good. Our cafe at our fitness center has actually started selling them. And because they're
awesome.
they're really good, and they use the Lily's chocolate chips, etc.
Good.
Shortbread style, like kind of that buttery shortbread type cookie. Tips there when you want it to be, how would you describe that texture?
Oh, I almost call it sandy.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't snap when you break the cookie, but it's also crisp.
Yeah.
It's like, it's crisp.
When you squeeze it, it's not soft. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So it's firm to the touch, but then it has sort of a sandy texture.
And that buttery melt in the mouth.
Every time I do any kind of shortbread style, again, I use Swerve. I use powdered Swerve a lot, which is another trick that I got from, I don't know, probably Cooks Illustrated or something, but they use powdered sugar, but just because then it blends into the butter really nicely. And then you don't use any leavening agent at all. It's, true shortbread should just be butter, sugar, and flour. In our case, it should be butter, almond flour, and sweetener. But I will also say that almond flour has a lot more fat, so you cut back on the butter because otherwise it won't firm up.
Okay.
You'll just have a pool of liquid.
And you mentioned like the powdered sugar style, so like the confectioner style Swerve. Is there a time that in that case, it's because it blends really well with the butter for that shortbread cookie? We haven't talked icings or frostings yet, but that's a powdered sugar confectioner style Swerve works well with that. As you're looking at which sweetener to use for other types of cookies, any guidelines on which one would be the best for someone to gravitate toward? And I guess as we're talking Swerve, and y'all, Carolyn and I are both just tremendous fans of Swerve. It doesn't have to be just Swerve. There are other erythritol sweeteners.
There are other brands. Yep.
So we'll be talking about it though, because it's what we use personally, is what we're familiar with the most. There's the granular sugar style Swerve. There's the confectioner style Swerve, which is like powdered sugar. The third is like a brown Swerve, like a brown sugar replacer. So tips
have you used, I was just going to ask you, have you used brown sugar Swerve or brown Swerve brown in the cookies that you mentioned that you want them to be softer?
No.
Okay, try that. Try that with no allulose first.
Okay.
I'd be really curious because I did this. So I haven't published it yet, but I'm going to at some point, a more soft batch style cookie that I did a couple things I did differently, and I just like threw it together one day and it just worked. And so first of all, I used Swerve Brown, and something about the molasses extract that they add gives it a little more moisture than granular Swerve or powdered Swerve, or I call it powdered Swerve, Swerve confectioners. And then I did melted butter instead of solid butter that you're beating the sweetener in. And it was this sort of beautiful, puffy, and it had, so that might be something that helps with your.
It's, my sister-in-law is like, she's really, everything she makes is just so pretty, and it comes out just so perfected. So I'm also going to suggest it to her, because then when I take exactly what she's done and I make them, it looks like a child made it a little bit. And she's just really, she's also an engineer. So I'm like, maybe it's something to do with like her level of like attention to detail. But I'm also going to share that with her, because I think she would be really like stoked to try that. And so would we use brown Swerve entirely and not any regular granular?
Brown Swerve entirely. In fact, I believe the recipe is on the Swerve website. A version of the recipe is on the Swerve website. And I think it's cranberry white chocolate cookies.
Okay.
And I used my own homemade sugar-free cranberries, dried cranberries. Okay. But I think that's, and I kind of want to take that. I have a cookie that I like that has the crisp quality. And now I want to do a soft baked batch kind of chocolate chip cookie. Okay. So I think that that's what works.
All right. So Tracy, if you're listening to this and we haven't talked yet, hit me up for a bag of the brown Swerve and we'll do an experiment on it. And so any other tips as we talk texture, like whether it's, like you said, the temperature of the oven, or baking soda versus powder, when you want the browning but not the rise, which sweetener to use when, anything like this?
Yeah. And I think, so for me, I find that most nut flours are pretty interchangeable, except that nothing is ever going to be as finely ground as well ground blanched almond flour. So if you're looking at, say, pecan flour, the problem with it is you can't skin you can't remove the skin entirely from pecans, and so you end up with a lot of that in, and it makes it a little more coarse. So almond flour really is going to be the best, but some people are allergic to almonds. I get that. So there's other things that you can sub in there. And then one thing that makes a difference is that we haven't touched on is nut butters. Like if you're doing a peanut butter, well, peanuts are not technically nuts, but still, right. Or almond flour or almond butter, you can get a very different sort of more that texture that belongs to a peanut butter cookie.
Okay. I'd like to take a minute to talk about Nutrafol, sponsor for this week's episode. Nutrafol is designed to support the growth of thicker, fuller, healthier hair from the inside out. And you've heard me say it before, when it comes to skin and hair care, I am a huge rules follower. I'm also very consistent, and I follow the specific recommendations of my dermatologist. So when I learned about Nutrafol several years back, I reached out to get her feedback on it, and she said that not only does she recommend it to her patients, she also uses it herself. So Nutrafol is a physician-formulated nutritional supplement that is made with potent botanicals. And there's so many things that we can do, like backing off of our damaging styling tools and heat and chemicals. But supplementing with Nutrafol is one tremendous way that we can also help to support healthier hair from within. So it is possible to grow thicker, healthier hair and support our show by going to Nutrafol.com and entering promo code FUELED to save $15 off your first month's subscription. This is their best offer anywhere, and it's available only to U.S. customers for a limited time. Plus, free shipping on every order. Get $15 off at Nutrafol.com. That's spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code FUELED. And what about, we talked a little bit about the baking soda versus powder, but talk with us, because one of the things that, we always say too is when you're using a flour that doesn't have gluten, in many of the recipes, we're going to need something that sort of mimics that effect of gluten. Talk to us about xanthan gum, which is often used to mimic that effect. Xanthan gum versus protein powders versus gelatin, and also kind of the role that this plays in your baked goods period.
Okay, I don't use any protein powder in cookies, because what protein powder does, and I use it in a lot of my cakes and muffins, is because it gluten is a protein. And when you don't have any protein, adding some protein powder to help a cake rise. And then once it's baked into shape, keep that shape. The protein powder helps a lot. And so you have a couple of options there. You can use, if you're talking cake, you can use whey protein, you can use egg white protein. Typically, I don't use collagen protein because collagen is sort of a connective tissue and it has like a gummy quality and it makes things more gummy and they take a long time to bake through. If xanthan gum, I don't use it in my cookies very much anymore because I find that cookies have a ratio of the right ratio of egg to, well, I guess there are some egg-free cookies, but the right ratio of eggs to the flour to hold together in the right way.
So in that case, that egg is serving as the protein versus the gluten.
It's the binder. And you want things to rise a little, but not as much as you do in like a cake. I will say that if you're using a different nut meal that maybe is more coarse, a little xanthan gum would help provide some binding qualities because the more coarse it is, the more crumbly it's going to be. And gelatin was a discovery by somebody else. I believe the blog is Keto Connect, but it might have been someone else and they just tried it out. I'm not really sure, but they put a tablespoon of gelatin in some chocolate chip cookies and it gave it that chewier quality. The same way that I said, don't use collagen or gelatin in cakes. Well, if you want a chewy cookie, it helps. So
Ben McLaughlin of who we both know, he was formerly with Swerve Sales. He contributed essentially our entire dessert indulge chapter to our Eat Fit cookbook. And he brought in the gelatin in the chocolate chip cookie in the Eat Fit cookbook. And it made such a difference just changing to that ingredient. So if you think about, okay, protein powder as a gluten replacer is going to make things puffier, fluffier. Something like gelatin will make it a little chewier. And so, and then xanthan gum, you may or may not need it. If you've got something like eggs in there that are going to provide enough protein, maybe you don't need that xanthan gum as you're changing from traditional wheat flour to an almond flour. But if you do find that it's crumbly, it's not holding its shape, then adding even, would you say like a quarter teaspoon or so, half a teaspoon?
No more than half a teaspoon. You really don't need, like a quarter teaspoon is what I use in most recipes where I use it, and no more than half a teaspoon.
So those are things to think about. If you have, let's say you have a recipe maybe that called for xanthan gum and you felt like the cookie didn't have the right texture and you thought, I really wanted it more chewy, then you could swap out that gelatin.
I think you would. Yeah, I would do, like, if you want to try this, if you have a cookie that you want to be more chewy, then leave out the xanthan gum and try a tablespoon worth of gelatin.
Okay.
So
kind of looking at, yes, it's the things that we think of like your baking temp and time and stuff like that. But as you hear, there's truly a science to these ingredients. I read in one of your recipes, I'm not sure which one it was, finely shredded coconut. Talk to me about this with
chocolate chip cookies.
Okay.
The chocolate chip cookies. So it's unfortunate that that's what I used, only in the sense that some people are like, I don't like coconut. Like
exactly.
They are so sold on the idea that they don't like coconut that they're like, I don't want to touch these cookies.
Right.
But the finely shredded coconut, not the big long strands or the flaked coconut, and this is unsweetened. Coconut has its own unique texture and it absorbs moisture and it kind of holds on to it. And so it gives those particular cookies that, when I grew up, my favorite chocolate chip cookies that I made all the time were out of the Joy of Cooking. And they were very flat. They spread a lot, probably too much to many people's eyes, but they had this crispy chewiness. Like it was both crisp and chewy at the same time. And I was playing around with things one time and discovered that substituting some of the almond flour for finely shredded coconut gave me the same, it's not perfect. It's not exactly the same as the Joy of cooking cookies, but it was really great. So people see it, unfortunately, and they go, I don't want to make these. And I'm like, no, you really won't taste the coconut.
How much of the almond flour do you pull and replace with the finely shredded coconut? Like what ratio?
In that recipe, it's normally I would use 2 cups of almond flour. It's like 1.25 cups of almond flour and then 3/4 cup finely shredded coconut. I think if you really hate coconut, you could probably try as little as 1/2 cup of the finely shredded coconut and 1.5 cups of almond flour.
And then we talked about sweeteners, allulose versus erythritol. And if, like, as we said, we talked more about these sweeteners a lot with these as we had the Gnocchi event instructors on the podcast, which we're linking to that podcast. But erythritol is what's in Swerve. It's the main sweetener in Swerve. There are other erythritol sweeteners we talked about, but those are two very different, very, very, very different sweeteners. And so allulose brings a lot of moisture into that product. And so, you know, those are some to think about. Like, that's why we're saying the cookie that I tried that was a little dry and puffy, then bringing in a little bit of allulose might be a good solution there. The other solution that Carolyn suggested is the brown Swerve, which if you've ever or haven't seen the brown Swerve in the bag, it actually, just like brown, like
packs.
Yes, it packs like brown sugar packs. It has this weird element to it and it smells amazing. Like, if you do nothing else but open that bag and smell it, it's so good.
I would honestly say if you put a cup of brown Swerve beside a cup of brown sugar, dark brown sugar, you would not be able to see the difference. You would not know the difference. I mean, they still bake a little differently, and you could probably taste them and they would taste exactly the same. To me, it is the best sugar substitute for brown sugar, hands down.
And something about what's in there that the molasses extract, like you said, that gives it that packability, that packs like brown sugar, is a little bit of a moisture that you're seeing in the baked product. So even if your recipe calls for sugar and you've substituted it for Swerve, you're not loving the final product there, let's try the brown Swerve.
Right.
Okay. And then that brings us to sweetness. Is there anything that you would guide people as they're adjusting cookies or trying these new recipes that are gluten-free or low carb, or is that just personal preference?
Oh, I would love to have guidance on that, but I think it's personal preference. Like, I have, the same recipe can get a comment that says, this isn't sweet enough, and another person saying this is too sweet.
Right.
And it's really, so one thing about sweeteners, which is sort of a fascinating thing to me, is we don't all taste them the same way. And so some people taste things in, I can't stand monk fruit, unfortunately. I can in some things, but it has to be really a small amount. If I can taste it instantly, and it is not unpalatable, but not great to me. It kind of ruins the effect. And people get aftertastes with different sweeteners, different aftertastes. So the sweetness, especially if you're starting your sugar-free journey, you're going to want more sweetener. I would always start the recipe with what it calls for. But if you found that it wasn't quite sweet enough, that's because your tastes haven't changed yet. And those of us who've been on a sugar-free journey for a long time tend to like things a little less sweet.
You're right. It's so subjective in that. It's incredibly subjective. The monk fruit note that you talked about, that is a love it or hate it for a lot of people. And I found that a lot of the people who like saccharin or sweet and low or something like that, like my father-in-law is a big Tab drinker. He loves monk fruit, loves it.
Interesting.
Even if it's maybe not saccharin specifically, but even like a Diet Coke, just it's that, because it's that very, very high intensity that almost has a little bit of a bitterness to it. I found that, that people who are typically would use something like sweet and low, or even like a Diet Coke, aficionado, they are like, oh man, I love this monk fruit, and others are like, oh, I just don't like it. So that is something to know too. If you're trying a recipe that calls for monk fruit and you don't like it, well, it may be the sweetener. So again, trying something like Swerve.
Right.
One thing to note though, is that monk fruit is so intensely sweet that it's very, it doesn't have a lot of bulk or a lot of volume.
Yeah. Right. Well, I will say this is a bit of a pet peeve of mine, so I'm going to get on it. There are a lot of things that build themselves as monk fruit that are mostly erythritol.
Thank you. Right.
And
let's talk about that.
They use, it drives me crazy because the front of the bag will say monk fruit sweetener. It's not a scam, but it's marketing gimmick because it looks like people go, ooh, fruit, it must be healthy. And it bothers me a lot because the main sweetener is erythritol. It's probably like 90% erythritol and 10% monk fruit, like a tiny bit of monk fruit to make it sweeter and measure more like sugar. So people ask me all the time on my recipes, I've given, examples of what you can do or what you want to do. And people say, well, can I use monk fruit sweetener? And I'm like, until you tell me what that monk fruit sweetener is, I can't tell you, because they're usually erythritol. Sometimes they're allulose with a little bit of monk fruit. So it's monk fruit sweetener is kind of a BS term. And real monk fruit is highly concentrated. It's like stevia in the sense that you would use like a quarter teaspoon to sweeten a whole batch of cookies.
And so when we're saying you could use monk fruit, what most people are buying on shelves, as Carolyn is saying, is going to be primarily erythritol or possibly allulose with some monk fruit, but what it says on the front is monk fruit. When we did our book, Zero Proof Cocktails, our Eat Fit Zero Proof Cocktails, I don't think I told you that. We're doing a whole book on zero proof cocktails.
Awesome. I think I need that.
And we looked at the different types of simple syrups. How can we master a simple syrup? And so we were trying the different types of sweeteners in different ratios. And that was something that was a source of confusion, because if you're going to say, well, let's try this one that's marketed to us at monk fruit, but when it's really largely erythritol or allulose, we're not using that. So when we actually used just pure monk fruit, it was interesting. The bag that came to me felt empty. It was so light because it's so concentrated. It wasn't like you're buying a pound of it, and it was still, whatever price point, $15, $20. And it was just a very small amount. And again, just the tiniest bit that we used in the concentration for the simple syrup, and it was awful. That one did not make the cut to be the simple syrup recommendation,
I can believe it. I can believe it.
So when you're thinking, well, monk fruit, and if a recipe calls for monk fruit, if you have the luxury to ask whoever created the recipe what type of monk fruit they did use, ask. So sweetness is going to be very, very subjective. Any other things that we would think of in terms of flavors? I know chocolate chips is a big one, anything else that we're flavoring our cookies with?
Well, I'm a huge fan of extracts and flavors. So I have a wild collection of things, everything from cherry to pineapple to, I look for natural flavors. So two of my favorites are Olive Nation and Frontier, and Simply Organic are a couple that I really like. And, so you can use caramel extract in a cookie. So say you're making you want it sort of a caramel chocolate chip cookie, a little bit of caramel extract gives that to you so quickly. So it's a great way, if you're trying to kind of go off brand and do something different and interesting, is to use extracts. Chocolate chips, of course, now they have chocolate chips of all sorts of sugar-free chocolate chips of all kinds of flavors, like both Lily's and Chalk Zero now carry pumpkin spice, they're having a lot of fun with it and making it more fun for us. So I feel like there's great nut butters, again, can flavor things. And, I just thought of something and now it's gone. Oh, other nuts, like chopped nuts, like hazelnut or things like that, can really play up different flavors that you're going for.
Some of those or I would think almost all of those are add-ins that you could do to an existing recipe that aren't going to change the outcome.
Right. Like I could take a chocolate chip recipe, or you could add some of the caramel extract into that double chocolate cookie you were talking about.
And all the different things we talked about baking time, ratios of flours to sweeteners, baking time, temp, adding a bit of extract or the chips or something like that wouldn't change it that much?
Wouldn't really change things that I could see. If you're trying to get a crisp cookie or versus a cakey cookie, chocolate chips aren't going to affect it too much, except sometimes they melt a little and they kind of crisp up after they melt, which does something different. But, another idea, ginger and spices.
Yes. Yes, ginger. Oh my gosh. Because ginger gives you also just that perception, a little bit of heat along with it. Oh yes. Okay.
Oh, and you know what I just did for Swerve was cardamom cookies. They're puffy, soft. I used Swerve Brown but puffy and soft, but also a little bit chewy.
Okay.
And cardamom. Oh my gosh, they were good. So, and those things, those little add-ins typically won't change the texture unless you're adding a lot of it. Like if you added a ton of chopped nuts, obviously the texture might change.
So a little bit of, whereas in a lot of baking, it is a science. Follow the recipe. It's if you're looking at Carolyn's website, there's so many recipes, and they are all they're not haphazard. They're not just, oh, a little bit of this. Carolyn is so precise. You have perfected these, and you go back and back and back and perfect them. So Carolyn's recipes, for example, and others are going to be those ingredients and the temperature, the time, they're very specific, and it is that science of it. But when you are playing with spices like ginger or the different herbs, or adding in the different extracts or chocolate chips or a sprinkling of nuts, that's where go ahead and give yourself that license to just play around with it, that there is no right or wrong. And you can really just be creative.
I completely agree.
And don't be afraid to do it. Like, I think people are so afraid sometimes of like, is this okay? Am I doing this right or wrong?
People often ask me, can I do this extract instead of vanilla? And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to change anything.
If you like it, yeah, if it sounds good to you, do it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So I mentioned earlier that when my sister-in-law Tracy is making really anything that comes out of her kitchen is just really pretty. Even like the peanut butter cups, the no-bake peanut butter cups. And those are like one of our Eat Fit cookbook items too. I make them all the time. And they just don't turn out pretty. She makes them all the time, and hers look like artwork. I mean, they look like yours. They look like Ben's. And I've been like, Tracy, tell me your technique. Like, walk me through exactly what you're doing. And then I do it next time, and and my husband will look, he's like, why do these not look like Tracy's? I'm like, I know. So,
well, I will be very honest. I am not the best decorator of cakes or cookies or anything like that. So what I do is I get a couple that are perfect and they're at the front of the photo. Okay. But I understand the technique. Okay. It's just that I'm sort of an impatient person, and that fiddly little, like I've watched, those TikTok videos of people decorating cookies, and I'm like, that's amazing, but I'll never do it. So I'll just take kind of the easy route and get a couple that look really good, and they're at the front of the photo. So that's my honest confession.
Which I'm so happy to hear that. And let me ask this. So, because I haven't watched like a TikTok on decorating a cookie, like, the cookies, like say a sugar cookie, and it looks like there's a whole scene on it. I mean, it looks like a whole photograph on it. How long from start to finish would it take to do something? Let's just say like a 3-inch by a 3-inch cookie.
I don't know, but I've seen people do those snow globes, and it's always done like quickly, like sped up.
Yeah, that's true.
Video. So but they, these cookies probably take like 10 to 15 minutes to decorate a single cookie.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And I'm like, if I can't do it in 5 minutes, under 5 minutes, we got a problem.
Even 5 minutes to decorate a single cookie, when you look at, because you think, okay, you might be doing these for a party, you might be doing these for holiday gifts for your friends, neighbors, coworkers. So walk us through, though, for those of us who want to take the time, we have the patience, how to master that perfectly iced cookie or decorate a cookie, and then also any shortcuts you have.
Okay, well, when you're working with, you got to have a good powdered sweetener, and they're not all the same. So once again, they're not all the same. Swerve is fabulous because it hardens nicely, but as it hardens, it tends to kind of go dull. So I do a combination when I'm doing royal icing, which is the one that you do beautiful outlined cookies with. And mine are okay. They're not perfect, but they're serviceable for a home cook. I use a combination of Swerve and powdered Boca Sweet, both the confectioner's versions, so that one stays, one will harden and one will keep it a little shinier and it won't go as dull. And then, I'm guessing you could probably use powdered allulose too, but I haven't tried it. And since allulose makes things so soft sometimes, I'd be a little worried that it would just like slide right off your cookie. The other thing is to add moisture to that combo. Well, one more trick, a little bit of egg white powder or even liquid egg white also firms it up as it hardens, as it sets. But then you add moisture like water, just plain water, really slowly until you have a consistency where you can do a cookie like an outline around the cookie where it's not going to flop, like sort of ooze off the cookie. And then to fill it in, you thin it a little bit more. And then you kind of, what I do, and I have a whole video of this for my sugar cookies. Then what I do is I thin it enough and I kind of blop it on in patches. And then I take a little toothpick and you can use the toothpick to push the frosting around or the icing around, and it'll fill in the little gaps. And because it's liquid enough at that point, just kind of pushing it with a toothpick gets it. nicely done.
This is one that you do need a video because I'm trying to visualize, and
I have a video.
And when we were talking before we started the podcast, I was like, okay, what are some of your best, like the best holiday cookie recipes that you have on your site that you would say, okay, here's your go-tos to try? And you said the sugar cookie cutout cookies would be the best. And that's the one that has the video with that?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have a YouTube video for that. It's really, I love those ones because they always surprise me at how good they taste, because they look like, oh, they're just kind of plain, you know.
Right.
When you buy a nicely decorated sugar cookie from a grocery store, it usually tastes like cardboard. So these actually have good flavor, but they, they're fun to decorate. So what I do is I do a huge batch of them every holiday, and then I hand my kids baggies full of different colored frostings and let them, I mean, they do a terrible job, but they have a lot of fun with it.
Right. It's not about it at that point. You know, if it's for your website, like you said, you do a few pretty ones, put those in the front.
Yeah. Yep. I have to say, when my kids are like, can I decorate that one? I'm like, nope, that one's mine. And also for decorating, you want to have a cute little shortcut trick.
Yes. That's what I was just going to ask.
There are plenty of sugar-free sprinkles these days.
Yes.
And sanding sugars, and I say sugars in quotes because, you know, they've taken something like erythritol and added a little color. And it's really fun to, you can just do white frosting and then sprinkle a little bit of that on top. And there you go. You got a pretty cookie.
Right. And it's still special. It's still something different.
Yeah.
So you can
so fun.
Watch Carolyn's YouTube video, which she links to, and the cookie recipe, which we will link to on the episode notes for this podcast. Or like you said, just coat it with a solid color, white or whatever you would choose, and then doing the sprinkles. Let's talk a little bit about with all of these, with the icings we talked about, like the powdered version of a swerve or a Boca Sweet. The colors, all of these colors that Carolyn's talking about are also natural plant-based colors. So none of these we're talking about are using like, you know, red 40 or any of this.
No.
And the world of natural food colorings has really expanded. So keep an eye out for that.
I will say also, though, you can never, with the ones that come, like say Watkins has a natural line, and also there's this Color Kitchen that I like that are these powders. You don't get a true red, but I discovered a way to get true red.
Share, because that is that's a giant challenge.
Is beet powder.
Okay.
And also I bought some raspberry juice powder, which I'm going to try at some point. It may still be more pink because it's raspberries, but the beet powder, you just need a tiny bit. What I do is I usually color it with the Watkins first and try to get a deep pink, and then a little bit of beet powder, whisk it in. The only problem with the beet powder is it thickens it, so you end up having to add a little water to thin it. It doesn't really taste like beets,
but
if you feel like you're tasting it, then grab a little extra vanilla.
Good tip there too. And that's one where just don't tell anyone, because you know, like if you tell someone to use beetroot powder in something, they're gonna be like, I think I taste it. No, just don't say it, but you'll know it, because that is one of the drawbacks of the natural sweeteners is they can be a little, some end up being a little bit more like a pastel version of something.
Yes.
But the hue that is the hardest to achieve is the red. So the beetroot powder is a really good tip. And if you do truly think you're getting that beet flavor, adding a bit of vanilla to kind of mask it.
Right.
Or make yourself feel better about it. That you're not serving like beet cookies to your friends and family. Any other tips on decorating or kind of the aesthetics on a cookie?
So one thing that I have found, so cookies that are made with flour and sugar, often you just roll them into balls and you pop them on your baking sheet and you bake them and they spread. But that's the gluten and the sugar in action. And low-carb sweeteners don't always spread as nicely. And so what you can do is you can roll them into balls and then press them down with your hand. The only problem with that is then they crack around the edges, and I don't like that look. And the perfectionist in me is like, I got to fix that. So one thing I discovered, which worked really well, was to pop them in the oven in their ball shape. then take them out about 5 minutes into baking, and then the dough is nice and warm, and you just take a flat bottom glass and you press them down to how thick you want them, and you get nice, not cracked edges on those cookies.
It's like a brilliant tip for the perfectionist minded, right? Because we all know what you're talking about. They sort of look kind of like choppy and just a little broken around the edges when you do that.
Yeah, around the edges, because when the dough is cold and you press, it starts to crack.
And so we talked texture, we talked sweetness, we talked flavors that we can add, colors, decorating tips, storage, and freezing. So talk to us about fridge versus freezer, how long we can store them, all of this.
Oh, I freeze so many cookies all the time. It depends on the cookie partly, but most cookies could be, if you want to, you can store them between sheets of wax paper in a Tupperware. I usually just pile them all in because I'm lazy. But almost all of them freeze really nicely, even once they're decorated. I'd say things that have, a filling that's sort of meant to be soft and gooey, like a jam filling, they wouldn't freeze that well. But you could freeze the cookie part before you add the filling. So I can't think of too many cookie recipes that don't freeze really nicely. And I have stored my cutouts for months in the freezer. And, because I actually shot that video sometime in September, and we have a whole bunch of them in the freezer for decorating in a couple weeks.
The bakers that we've worked with Eat Fit have been emphatic that baked goods go in the freezer, period. Don't refrigerate them because it'll dry them out a lot quicker.
Oh, yeah, and because things made with swerve can dry out faster anyway, because sugar is what they call, I'm going to use the technical term, hygroscopic, which means it attracts moisture, and swerve is non-hygroscopic, so it doesn't attract moisture. So, pardon me, I think that's a really interesting tip. I don't put cookies for me are either on the counter in a covered container or in the freezer.
And our bakery producers and manufacturers would give you a thumbs up for that. And that's something that you've done just instinctively. But
I guess.
Yeah.
Some people like their cookies cold, not frozen cold, but like refrigerated cold. And I find that weird. I've always liked them better at room temperature. So,
and if you are that, then it's okay. It's okay to put them in the fridge, but don't store them there. And they're going to be better airtight container on the counter. If you aren't going to have them right away, put them in the freezer. We have so many different things like that in our freezer as well. And so not being afraid to freeze them, and they can truly last for months in there. So not being afraid of that too. And if you find as this is airing, it's already into December, but in the future, if you know that things start to get wild, just like Carolyn said, she's baking these cookies, she's freezing them, then takes them out, and then you can decorate them as it's closer. We talked about some of your favorite recipes. We're going to put the link to your sugar cookie cutout recipe. You also have a great one for gingerbread men that you say those are kind of your favorites for decorating. And
letting
then
the kids just go a little wild on.
You have a ricotta cookie that you said is just wildly popular.
It's wildly popular, and I couldn't believe how good it was. I was like, really? Ricotta and a cookie? But I guess you put cream cheese in cookies sometimes, and it is definitely a cakey cookie, but it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be these soft little balls that you then dip in like a glaze, and so good.
They're beautiful. So we'll put the link to that on the episode notes. And then two others. One that you say is easy. It's a peppermint bark cookie. And one that you say is unbelievably easy, doubly easy, is these snowball cookies. And so we'll have, sort of a spectrum here, depending on what our listener feels is kind of their baking skills. And I appreciate you letting us put the links to those. And so that'll take you also to Carolyn's website, which just peruse around there anyway. And then if you've listened to all this, you're like, all right, well, this is all fantastic. However, either you're too pressed for time or you're just not a baker, but you want the end result of the cookies. Carolyn and I have a taste test. We're going to do a live taste test together.
This is so exciting.
I know. I've been looking forward to this ever since we decided about it. So
I didn't eat breakfast so I could eat cookies.
You're so hilarious. Everybody else, don't do that. Don't eat. Save up.
No, I really did have breakfast. I'm a liar, but
no,
that's okay.
It sounds better though. This is breakfast. Because you're a little bit earlier time zone also.
I am. It's 11:30.
Yes.
Okay.
So some of the ones that I had featured on a recent TV segment on store-bought cookies that are actually better for you. There's, and I'll link to that segment just so we'll have all of those there. But there's a cookie called Fat Snacks, SNAX. There's one that is a brand called Lesser Evil. They have what they call deliciously clean cookies. There's a brand called High Key Cookies. They have FOMO No Mo across their brand.
Yeah, I know, that's cute.
Fear of missing out no more is what that means. There's a brand called Partake that Carolyn unfortunately couldn't find. There's another brand. How do you say it?
I think you just say HU because it says get back to human on the packaging. So it's HU.
Those are the ones that you have. And then is it Siete as we call the others?
Yes.
Siete. That is one that you may have seen, the Siete chips, the cassava flour chips or tortillas, but they also have cookies. So we've got a whole bunch. Where do we start?
I don't know. Your choice.
Okay. Do we start with the ones that, do you want to start with the ones that I like the best and work our way down? Okay. Well, I'll just tell you about the Partake. So the Partake birthday cookie, reaching down and getting it out of our bag here. So the Partake.
Can you show me the packaging?
Yes. So if you do see this in stores, y'all. So Partake meaning you can partake in your cookies because it is top 8 allergen free. So it's vegan, it's gluten free, it's also free of top 8 allergens. And so the name Partake is cute. You know, you can partake in your desserts, your sweets. For 3 cookies, and they're maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches in diameter. 3 cookies, 140 calories. They're 18 carbs, 8 sugars, 8 grams of sugars for 3 cookies. So just under 3 grams of sugar per cookie and about 6 grams of carbs per cookie. To me, they are sort of what Carolyn was saying earlier. People's perceptions of sweet and their preferences of sweet are very, very different. These, and I like the birthday cake specifically. There's different flavors, chocolate chip, etc. The birthday cake one to me doesn't have a strong flavor of what you would think of as birthday cake, of like an almond or anything like that. They're much more neutral, almost like a shortbread. In fact, Carolyn, my husband, we both had COVID about a year ago. And my husband is one of those long haulers in terms of taste.
Oh, he lost his taste.
Intensely when we had COVID. He had a little bit before I did. And he really lost all taste and smell. And now 1 year in, he's about 75% back. But there's still some things he doesn't. So when I had brought these home, because I was doing a TV segment, a month or so ago, and I had bought different ones and I wanted to get his feedback. So he tastes this one. It says birthday cake on the front. He tastes it. And he had the longest chew on it, and he's thinking, and he's, really like moving his mouth around. You know how you like move your tongue to kind of get the flavors and you're really trying to get everything. And I'm like watching him, I'm like, this is like the longest. And he's just like looking kind of perplexed. And I'm like, what is, well, he was saying birthday cake on it, and it doesn't really have a strong hint of birthday cake. So he's distressed because he thinks he's not getting any of this birthday cake. Right. And I was like, no, I said, actually, it's really neutral on that. It's just kind of more like a shortbread type cookie and just a neutral kind of a shortbread style. And he's like, oh, okay. Then he got it. But this has become kind of like our favorite go-to because it is not too sweet. So the Partake, unfortunately, Carolyn doesn't have that one. My next favorite after that is the Siete brand.
Okay. I got the Mexican chocolate, which
yes.
you recommended.
Oh, you did the chocolate. I've gotten the Mexican shortbread, so I'm interested to see what you think of that.
Oh, was it? I think, okay. Sorry.
Both. No, we'll see.
Which one you said.
Have you tried these at all yet?
I have not. They are not necessarily low carb. They're 16 grams of carbs. Total sugars, 6 grams.
And that's for 6 cookies.
I wouldn't normally. Is it for 6 cookies? Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Then I can have one. No problem.
Yeah, exactly. And these, what I'll say is on all of these cookies, if you have just 1, 2, like we mentioned, those Partakes, they're like just under 50 calories a cookie, 2.5, 3 grams of sugar per cookie. And a little bit of a decent one. Okay. We've got our Siete.
I didn't see Mexican shortbread. Now I want to look for that. Okay. I'm taking the chocolate one. It's crunchy. It's meant to be crunchy. It doesn't have a ton of chocolate flavor, but it has like a little bit of the cinnamon kind of different thing.
How do you like the texture?
It's a little dry. But other than that, like I would say it's pretty good, but it's a little on the dry side. Like I feel like I'd need water to eat these.
I really like this. It's a little bit of a powdery texture, powdery consistency, nice, crispy. As you squeeze it, it's very, very crisp, very crunchy. What I love, Carolyn and I, by the way, are looking at each other on FaceTime, so we're able to see. She has her AirPods in, and we can hear your crunch into these. It's so fantastic. Yes.
I was going to ask if you could hear that because it was so loud in my ears.
Yeah, we can hear it, and it's really fantastic because we're right there with you while you're tasting them. So would you give this a thumbs up?
When I eat?
Right. If you're on a conference call with other people, though, and you're eating something as crunchy as the Siete cookies. So how did you feel about these? Is this one that you would give a green light to?
Yeah, I would say I want to try the ones that you really like because this doesn't have a ton of chocolate flavor. Have you tried those ones?
I haven't tried the chocolate because I just really liked, I bought the Mexican shortbread I mentioned with that Partake birthday cake cookie. I liked it because it's sort of a shortbread. I never really thought that I'm a shortbread cookie person, but
I love shortbread.
And I think because it isn't so super sweet. It's just a little bit more neutral.
Again, this was not overly sweet. For me, this would be like a good, quick snack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So those two have been two of my favorites, the Partake, the Siete, which I may or may not be saying correctly. And then I know you and I are both big fans of the third, High Key.
I love High Key.
How would you describe this
cookies
one to our listeners?
Oh, well, first of all, okay, so you know what they're like, particularly the chocolate chips, were all those mini Chips Ahoy, the packages that had like the mini cookies in them that were nice and hard and crunchy.
Yes.
That's what these are like to me. And my kids, I bought some, I hadn't even heard of the brand. I found them on Amazon one time. I bought some for my kids to snack on and they were like in love. So now we keep them around all the time and they have a ton of great flavors, but the chocolate chip and the chocolate brownie are two of their best sellers.
Are they all mini cookies that you've seen?
They're all mini cookies.
So the size of the cookie, I've got it in my hand now, is about the diameter of a dime ish. Yeah. The Siete cookie that Carolyn and I just tried, it's about maybe like a silver dollar. Okay. And the Partake cookies that we were talking about are a little bit bigger, a little bit thicker. So this is the diameter of a dime, a little bit thicker than a dime, but they're all little mini cookies. And the High Key are specifically branded as a keto cookie. And for like 7 of these little mini cookies, they're right at 12 grams of carbs and 0 sugars.
And 12 of those grams are, 6 of those grams, 9 of those grams are, I had to put my reading glasses on, or erythritol. So for somebody like me, that doesn't affect my blood sugar. So I could have a serving of these and really what the impact on my blood sugar is only 3 grams.
3. So always, as you're looking at labels, you're able to subtract the fiber from your total carb count. You're also able to subtract any of those sugar alcohols or erythritol from your total carb count. So these are 12 grams total carbs, 2 fiber, 9 erythritol. So actually that brings us to 1 gram impact carbs. So it's 9 erythritol. They don't affect me. Yeah. So 1 net carb or impact carb, as we would say, for 7 little pieces. So talk to us about the texture. I'm going to have one with you.
Okay. You're going to hear me.
Don't be self-conscious. It's fantastic. I'm chewing right now too.
You want me to have the chocolate chip? Oh, I got to open the package. And I didn't do that very well. Oh gosh. I can't even get into it. Hold on. Help.
I love that we've got like the rumbling of the packages, the cookies shaking to the top.
I might need scissors, man. I've never had that happen before.
This is
Maybe
the first
just got a bum package.
Real-time taste test we've ever done too.
I know, and I'm running to get scissors now. I didn't anticipate that because I've opened these packages many times before without issue. I opened them. I took them on a trip to Switzerland with my kids, and gave them to them on the train, and didn't have that issue. I certainly didn't have scissors in my backpack.
Well, as my perception of these is the Partake and the Siete are very, very neutral. They're not super sweet. The High Key, if you're looking for a sweeter cookie, this is going to be more up your alley.
I can see that, yeah.
And the texture
I'm still having trouble.
I'm continuing to talk and fill.
Okay.
The texture is buttery. Oh, I tried. I'll have another with you. You go ahead.
You want me to have one?
Yeah.
No? Okay. Finally, we're getting here. Okay. Not as crisp. sweeter, but really reminds me of the Chips Ahoy that I had as like kids once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So
Buttery.
I really like these. Yeah.
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 Not as crisp, but not in a bad way. Sort of like, I keep going back to the shortbread, but sort of like that. Like if you push on the cookie, it's not a soft cookie. They're not soft.
But it's
sandy.
It's like that one's, it's not as crisp, but it has that sandy texture where it kind of crumbles under your teeth.
And a nice butteriness to it. Mm-hmm. And then the last two that I have, and then you have the Hue ones, the Deliciously Clean mini cookies. It's the brand Lesser Evil.
I got to make sure I can get into my box. I should have opened these all before I started, but now I have scissors.
So these are a softer cookie. They're also maybe the diameter of a nickel. They're smaller. They're kind of little mini cookies. Okay. They're a softer texture.
And what I got the fudge brownie. Is that the one you told me to get?
I think that's fine. I had the birthday cake variety just for the consistency on this end, but yeah. Okay.
So you want me to bite into it and hear my... Ooh, it actually has chocolate chips in it too.
We won't hear you on this one.
Soft. Not. I'm trying to decide if it's chewy or not. Definitely softer. Doesn't have that crisp quality at all. But tasty.
I wasn't as much a fan of this one.
I will tell you, since I've had the high key brownie cookies, not nearly as good.
Yeah.
Decent,
yeah.
And
we're looking at about 6 net carbs for 3 of them. They're pretty small though. Like I said, about the size of a nickel, a puffy nickel. There's something in them that I'm like, I don't know if it's the flavor, the texture. They're just okay to me. Whereas the others I've been like, wow, like I've bought multiple times, and it's sort of like, if we're going to have a cookie in our household, it's the Partake or the Siete or the High Key. These I bought for the segment because nutritionally the ingredients were good, especially for a cookie.
Right.
But yeah.
If since I know the High Key brownie, like if it's up against High Key, I'm going to choose High Key.
Agreed.
And I have found that there are plenty of other keto cookies out there, a lot of which you can't get at like a regular grocery store. You have to order online. None of them, and a lot of them, like after High Key came out with their crispy cookies, these mini cookies, everybody started doing it. None of them are as good.
Right. They've just nailed it.
So
the last one that I have is Fat Snacks, SANX. Fat Snacks. Had you tried these before?
I have 2 varieties. One came in I get Keto Crate. It's one of those subscription boxes. So this one, which I'd already opened, is Maple Pecan. And then I also have, you have the mini ones. Shoot.
That's okay.
I bought
you got the chocolates.
Wait, are those mini?
And I got the Snickerdoodle.
Oh, I bought the soft baked ones. Did I buy the wrong things?
These are also soft. They are.
Oh, okay. So I just have larger versions of what you have.
I think you have larger versions. Okay, I'm interested to get
Which one are you trying?
This one is the Snickerdoodle Mini.
Okay. I don't have that. I have Maple Pecan, which I did try already, but I'll try again.
And all of these, we should mention, are gluten-free. They are all made with an almond flour or flour alternative. Some have a blend. All of them are either very low carb and sugar or close to it, still much lower than traditional cookies. Okay, you ready?
Right. I taste monk fruit. Do they have monk fruit? I feel like they do. I gotta look.
They do have monk fruit. You're absolutely right.
See how instantly I tasted that? I didn't even know if they did.
And I didn't look for that in the ingredients, but I have a feeling that's probably why I don't love these either.
Right.
If this was,
I don't love them. I don't hate them, but I taste the monk fruit. And the variety that I'm having is the maple pecan. And it doesn't taste like maple pecan because all I taste is monk fruit.
Right. So I think if this was the only option on shelves, nutritionally, the ingredients, they're natural, the plant-based sweeteners in here, the the gluten-free flour alternatives. And again, not necessarily that gluten's the bad thing, but when we're looking at something made with almond flour, we just have a lot more, it's a better nutrient-rich flour, of course, than just like white all-purpose flour. So quality of these ingredients is a lot better than regular cookies on shelves, but for me, the lesser evil or the fat snacks, I probably wouldn't buy them again, especially because we do have these other alternatives. And then the last one that we've got is the Hue cookies. So tell me your thoughts on those. Okay. I don't have them.
Okay. So I'm going to look at the packaging here, which means I need my reading glasses. What does it say? Get back to human. They are no added sugar, no cane refined sugar, no sugar alcohols, no stevia or erythritol. No gluten grains, no dairy palm. Wow, they have a lot of no's. They are made with date, organic coconut oil, organic cocoa butter. I got again. Nope, these are just chocolate chip. They're mini cookies. I don't know if they're crisp or anything yet. They have cashew flour, chicory root fiber, cassava flour. One of these other ones, did the Siete have cassava flour in it too?
Yes.
Right. Okay, so let me tell you, the carb count is 13 grams. The fiber is 3 grams. And so I don't know what they're sweetened with. They are sweetened with dates, of course, that's the thing. So normally I personally would not consume too many dates.
That's why I haven't reached for this product, because dates being the first ingredient. When I'm looking at what's a lower sugar cookie. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's not super high. 2 of them are stuck together. 3 of them are stuck together. That's not good. So we're going to, I can smell dates. Like it's all I can smell. And they smell, well, we'll try them. They're small. They're like about the size of a quarter. You can hear me crunching.
I like it.
And they taste like dates.
Yeah.
Like they don't taste like anything else really.
What's the sugar for the serving size of cookies?
Sugars is 7 grams.
And how many cookies?
And the serving size is 9 cookies.
Okay.
So in this bag, there's only 2 servings,
wow.
which I guess is pretty good.
Okay.
But they really don't taste like anything. They taste like what your head says would be a healthy cookie.
Right. Again, not a bad thing. And if that's, if someone loves dates and you heard it's a good kind of a crunchy cookie, Carolyn's got there. But I think our top, if you're looking for that sweet cookie, the high key, we would say get that one. I've seen it at stores like Whole Foods, kind of natural food stores. Also Costco carries the high key cookies.
Yeah, they sell them. But they're online, I will also say, has a bunch of different other flavors.
Great. Okay.
So check those out because you can get everything from vanilla wafers to salted caramel cookies.
And then the Partake is probably my personal favorite for that crunchy, shortbready type cookie. And then the Siete is a little bit of a ginger snap texture. And again, I like that Mexican shortbread. It's got a little bit of that cinnamon and a little bit of heat with it. And so the high key, if you're looking for a cookie that is sweeter, the Partake and the Siete are my favorites for kind of a neutral, not so sweet cookie. And those personally are the 3 that we have. Like if we're going to have cookies in the household, it's any of these varieties. Anything else that we want to share with our listeners? So we've got them covered. If we've got texture issues, sweetness issues, decorating tips, if you say scrap all that, I'm not doing any of this baking, but I really want to buy them, we've got you covered there with our feedback.
Yeah. I have one tip.
Okay.
If your cookies don't work out, please don't throw them away. If they break, they crumble, whatever, turn them into, add some melted butter and some cream cheese or something and turn them into truffles. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, oh, I didn't really like it, so I threw it away, or it was too dry and hard and crumbly, or it wasn't sweet enough. Okay, crumble them up, add some more sweetener, add some butter, turn them into truffles. It's great. Please just don't throw those expensive ingredients away. And even if you happen to buy a bag of something online or in the store and you didn't end up liking it, do the same thing. Toss them in a food processor, turn them into crumbs, turn them into truffles. Find
another use for it, whether it's the money that you've got into it or your time that you've gotten into it.
Right.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Carolyn, you're brilliant. Thank you so much for carving out the time and sharing your insight, and then also doing this first ever live taste test on our podcast.
I'm sorry for all the crunching.
I loved it. It was an element I wasn't expecting, but it made it even better.
Oh, sorry about that, guys.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn.
Thanks so much.
I always love my time with Carolyn, even if it's got to be virtual like this. And I'm grateful for her to spend so much time walking us through. She truly is an encyclopedia of knowledge when it comes to low carb, low sugar, gluten-free baking. And an encyclopedia, I can't even believe I didn't mention this earlier in the episode, y'all. She truly is an encyclopedia, and she has written multiple books with, tons of different gorgeous, delicious recipes. But her most recent book, Carolyn's most recent book, is The Ultimate Guide to Keto Baking. And I'm going to link to that. I'm going to put it up top in our show notes of this episode so you can see it. It is, I've heard people refer to it as basically their low carb baking Bible. People who they know a lot about it, they're very well versed in it, but this is the go-to resource. So the chefs who've even taught classes on this, they're using this as a reference and guiding their students to use Carolyn's book as their go-to tool. So I can't say enough about it. The Ultimate Guide to Keto Baking. I mentioned again, she's an encyclopedia, and she truly is. And Carolyn shares so much of that knowledge in this book. And always let us know what you think as you try some of these baking strategies that Carolyn shared, troubleshooting what might be going wrong with creating that perfect holiday cookie, or if you try some of the different cookies that we taste tested live for y'all today. We always want to hear about it. I am registered dietitian Molly Kimball, and you've been listening to Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, the podcast. And if you would like more Fueled Wellness and Nutrition, please head over to mollykimball.com, and you can follow me, Molly Kimball RD, on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And if you haven't yet, please go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. Join us next week for another dose of Fueled Wellness and Nutrition. Thanks for listening, and stay focused on living your strongest, healthiest life.